Just waiting for the stream to go live. Oh, I think we're live. Okay, so welcome everybody to the Technical Steering Committee meeting for May 9th, 2018. It's going to follow our standard agenda. So to start with, does anybody have announcements?
No, kinda. Did have a good conversation with the Microsoft team over here, and expressed the need to have some work on installers and Windows, more Windows support for libv, that kind of thing. So hopefully got some good things going there.
Okay. So you're hoping
status then announcement, but doesn't fit anything else.
So you're hoping we'll see some more involvement on that side? Is that the...
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Okay, the other announcements I will say is, I think this was since last time Miles was reelected as a director, maybe since I didn't make the mass meeting, you already announced that. TSC chair votes are ongoing, closes next Monday, so please, whoever hasn't voted yet, if you can vote, that would be great. The vote will either close when the last few people vote or on May 14th. So I guess moving on to the standard agenda, FS dropped duplicate API in promises mode. So James, I don't know if you want to take that one.
Yeah, I mean, I'm actually not sure why this one's on the agenda. I might have missed something on the in the thread. There were some kind of duplicated functions between the file handle object and the FS promises, and they just aren't necessary to have them duplicated. The API is still experimental, so I don't think there's anything real controversial. We can just pull those off. So I don't have the issue up in front of me, so I'm not sure if somebody objected enough to put it on the agenda.
I'd read through it earlier. My take was it was mostly put on the agenda just as an FYI, since it was moving a fairly good portion of the API. But my take is if you're in agreement and there's no disagreement, then yeah, it should just move forward. But if I guess other people want to chime in there, that's really the sort of the FYI, so people can do that. Okay, so I think moving on to the next one. The next two are 19827 and 19079, which are add documentation reporting from buffer arg usage and tracking issue for runtime deprecation of buffer constructor. Those two, Rich mentioned, he's sort of pushing them and he's not here, so he could give us an offline update unless anybody else has something to add on those two. Okay, if there's nothing on that, we'll wait for the offline update. So moving on to the next issues. So the tracking issue for the updating the board on board meetings. Miles had mentioned that he likely wasn't going to make it, and unless he's joined recently, I don't think he's here. So we'll skip. The next one is an update on strategic initiatives. I can start with NAPI. So basically, there are now versions for native NAPI support for 6, 8, and 10, as well as master. 8 still needs an update to be sort of brought up to date with the rest of the versions, but that should go out with the next 8.x release that happens. We've published a new version of Node add-on API that uses it for 6, and our focus is on adding more doc for Node add-on API. I don't know if there's any questions on that. So next, I'm going to open up the issue and we can go through the list. Right, so James, HTTP2, anything on that front?
Nothing specific, just still making progress. We've had some bug fixes and doc updates here recently. For the most part, just trying to let it just stabilize and ensure that that things are good with it. There may be some updates to some of the error handling at some point here soon, but we're still kind of getting some validation.
Okay. Okay, modules. I guess we don't have Miles. So we'll skip that one. Okay. NAPI already gave. OpenSSL evolution. We don't have Rod today. So we'll skip that one. Workers. Anna, do you have anything to add on that front?
Basically, it's just that it's slowly moving onward. I think at this point, like we're waiting for a libuv update to land in master, and we're. I got a couple PRs open that like have better multi-threading support for, just like for embedders and hopefully later for workers, like adding mutexes stuff and those kind of things. So yeah, I hope that things will be going a lot more smoothly in the next weeks.
Okay. So basically PRs which lay the groundwork for both workers and other aspects like embedding, right?
Yeah.
Hey, Anna, just quickly, I was going through some of the B8 code this weekend. Have you experimented with JS serialize or JSON serialize or stringify with the workers yet? The reason I ask is part of that code actually uses a static allocated buffer, and I'm not sure if there might be some thread safety issues there.
Sorry, a static buffer for what?
As part of the JSON serialize, a static buffer is used, and it could have some thread safety issues. So I'm just wondering if you'd experiment with it at all.
I'm actually surprised to hear that, but I'll take a look.
Okay.
I mean, like for the serialization for workers, like for message passing, we do the same thing that, or at least the current versions of the patches do the same thing that Chromium does, which is the value serializer API. It's like
right. I don't anticipate it being an issue. I just
yeah, I'll take a look. So, okay. It would be great if you like could point me to what you found, but yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll send you. Okay.
Yeah, especially if that if that does turn out to be something, maybe it's a pattern we should say here's something to look out for when you're going through the code, and people can start highlighting those.
Yeah.
Okay. Error messages, Joy.
Yeah, things are still moving. So yeah.
Okay.
Nothing to report this week.
Okay. Core promises APIs. James, do you have anything on that front?
We're making progress. Specifically limiting it to the FS right now, just as we kind of work through the process and the API pattern and how we're going to expose these things. So just kind of using that as the test bed. So I'm purposefully not pushing other APIs yet until that settles out. Okay. The biggest question there is going to be, like the namespace. So we just had to switch from the FS/promises to hanging promises off as a property of the FS module. We had to revert that because of a regression in the module loader. So there's some things we still have to figure out before we really move forward. So.
Okay. It's good to know the approach. New stream APIs, Jeremiah on? Actually, I don't think so. James, do you have anything to say on that one?
I know he's making progress. I have to sync up with him on the latest. He's doing some of the work on some more stuff at the C++ level. I know he was getting pretty close to wanting to bring that repo into the Node.js organization, okay. But I haven't talked with him much since last week about it. So.
Okay, so bring repo where the work is being done.
Yeah.
Okay, makes sense. Okay. V8 currency, Michael.
He had said he wasn't able to talk, so we'll see.
Oh, okay, sorry. Okay, didn't catch that. Great. So we'll just read the last blocking issue for 6.7. Upgrade is being fixed. It was again a problem related to an old Clang version. So there's an open issue to suggest upgrading the Clang version. Sounds good. I know we're also working on some issues on an even later or an even newer version of V8 with respect to the compiler on AX. So we're working through some of those. Okay, so async hooks, is Ali here? I don't think so. So we'll skip that one. Okay.
Well, I can.
Go ahead.
I can say a little bit about.
Sure.
Like I said, something on the async hooks. I know that it was last week, before last. Some of the Nearform folks spent some time with the Google folks on the V8 team, and they went through async hooks pretty thoroughly, and were able to identify a number of performance bottlenecks in the design. So there is a PR open right now that Mateo has for get current resource and some refinements to that API in the implementation that yields a fairly sizable performance improvement. But it is in a bit of an API change. So I encourage everyone to go take a look at that and review that work.
Okay, so open the PR that improves performance, but requires an API change.
Yeah.
Okay.
From what I understand, and Mateo's would be the best one to give the details, but from what I understand, he was able to keep it from being Semper Major, but it does require some looking at.
Okay. Okay, I guess it's still experimental too, right? But even so, it was like managed to keep it so that it's not breaking.
Right.
Okay. Anything else on the strategic initiatives before we move on to the next topic?
On the trace events front, we actually might want to make trace events an actual strategic initiative at some point, but there has been some progress there. Ali has been working on, Ali and Dean have been working on enabling trace event support for the inspector protocol. There's a PR that they opened yesterday, the trace domain, and would allow a trace event client to connect and receive the flow of trace events. So that needs to be looked at. And the other thing is I'm working on a V8 intrinsic function for emitting traces that's quite a bit faster than what we have currently. There is a work in progress PR for that I'd appreciate some eyes on.
Is that a PR in the V8 repo or our repo?
In core for now. It will need to be upstreamed. It's just a work in progress, not intended to be landed as is.
Okay.
In Node, but it puts it in context and allows us to experiment with it. So.
Fast trace events from JavaScript. So it is a PR and it's changes in code to V8, right?
Yep.
That updates V8, but is against our repo for now to experiment. Okay. Any other things before we move on? Yeah, and I'd say like if we're going to have ongoing work on the trace event front, then it makes sense to make that a strategic initiative, and if we have volunteer for the champion, that would be great.
Yeah, I'll open the PR that has it.
Okay. Okay, if nobody else has anything else, and the next thing on the agenda is proposal add all new core modules under a scope. So this is 389. I think Joy, were you the one who added it to the agenda?
Yeah, I think this can be taken down this week. Yeah, probably because we have moved the promises API back to FS, so it's not a problem now.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's not as critical, yeah. I mean, it will need to be revisited at some points. If we do add a new top level module, so we don't just keep punting the discussion down.
Yeah, it would actually be worthwhile to. It would be worthwhile to come to an agreement on what we want to do on this front.
Right.
Does somebody have a short summary of what the options are, and like is it I've read it a bit through it, but it's not 100% clear. Is it just that we have a couple of different options we just need to choose, or is there still like we just don't know what the right way to go is?
I don't think we've decided exactly that yes, this is something we want to do or not. So regardless of what the options are, there's the option of do nothing. Right. Okay. There's a variance. There's a way we need to do it with CommonJS, and maybe we do it with ESM. So as the ESM stuff is getting figured out, we have to make sure we're thinking through that. But for the CommonJS approach, it would just be something like a require at Node.js /fs, right? Or whatever. So we just would need to identify that namespace. I have heard some comments from folks that it's not very ergonomic, right? It doesn't make it, it makes Node code look not as pretty and clean. Whether or not that's something we want to care about or not is something we need to decide.
Right. Basically, you have to type a few more characters.
Yeah.
Is there any other downsides besides that?
Not that I'm aware of, other than just we have to decide whether we want to do that for the existing core modules. So would we have an Node FS, right, and an FS?
Right.
Right. And the backwards compatibility issues, if someone starts using like the @Node FS,
right,
that wouldn't work in 6, 8, 10, that kind of thing. So,
yeah, I guess unless we do something, though, that'll always be a problem.
There is also the issue like of the WG URL API, because it is out of experimental now and it is mounted that way. And maybe like in the future we could introduce another kind of namespace, like in addition to the existing API, we could introduce another namespace for like a variants of APIs.
Right.
Maybe we don't have to choose. We can add another one, like an alias for like ergonomics.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, because I guess the main reason this comes out is because it can conflict with existing modules, right?
Yeah, but I think the WG URL, like for that, the ship is sold. We couldn't change that now.
Right. I guess my first thought, having read through it, is if we just said it was at Node.js at, and we made sure we had the Node.js namespace in NPM. Are there people raising specific concerns with that, or?
The concerns really are, go down to the ergonomics and the backwards compatibility.
Right. I mean, the backwards compatibility, I guess it comes around to you might have to support both for a while, right?
Well, it's more that anybody that's writing to the new one, that code won't be portable and won't be usable in old versions.
But if, for example, but if we do, I guess we either decide we do nothing forever or we have to do something at some point. Like if we actually said, well, we're going to do it and have both aliases, then 3 years from now, all versions would have the new versions, right? And you could code could start to move over.
Yeah, we should make sure we have enough options to go through before we actually make a decision.
Sure. Yeah.
Right now, like I don't think the add Node.js or the add core approach is ideal either.
Okay. Yeah, it just seems like something that, yeah, the pressures maybe is off, but it would be good to make progress on figuring out whether nothing or something. Because it seems like no matter what, if we do need to do something at some point, it's going to take time to adopt, right?
Right. Yeah, there's no quick path here.
No.
Once we have a basic strategy for anything new where we don't have to worry about the backwards compatibility,
Right.
that'll be something we can take on, but we have to know what the strategy is going to be so we don't shoot ourselves in the foot.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I can see the, maybe we need the module side to settle out a little bit if they're linked. But other than that, it would be good to keep this moving forward. Is this issue open outside of this particular issue? I guess this is, well, yeah, so this one was just raised. Anyway, this issue is generic. We'll continue to going. You're just, okay, the priority will drop a bit because the FS was moved. Okay, anybody else have more they want to add on that? Discuss? No, okay. So then that takes us to the Q&A portion. Is anybody watching the?
I'm watching the stream, but there's no questions.
Okay, so maybe we'll give people, if you're watching and have a question, we'll give you a minute to post them there. Francisca, anything, still nothing?
No.
Or no? Okay, so I guess we'll call the public session for today. Thank you for everybody who joined, and thank you to everybody who's watching, and we'll see you next week. I'm just going to take the stream down.